I'm Jen de la Vega,
And I'm Clara Park.
and welcome to the Cinema Chefs, the podcast for people who love to cook, watch movies, and cook what they see in the movies. Today, we're going to talk about
Oldboy.
Some spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the movie, and if you are going to watch it, I want to issue a content warning for violence.
Disturbing themes. If I were to summarize Oldboy in one sentence, I would say a man mysteriously imprisoned for 15 years in a hotel room seeks vengeance from his captors. The ultimate tale of revenge and incest.
Spoiler. We chose this movie because it's considered one of the greatest films ever made.
Woo!
Formative for me, I would say. Landing at number 64 of the top 500 best films of all time by Empire Magazine. I think this movie changed how I perceive storylines.
Whoa. Can you elaborate on that?
It has a twist that I had never seen before in my life. And not a lot of other movies have done it this way.
So you kept guessing the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know what was coming, and the twist upon twist was like, it blew my mind. I'm sure a lot of other people had the same reaction.
And I think also, the movie is Korean and just there's like a lot of themes about like family duty and respect and class and private life being private. And all those things are so deep in Korean culture. I think the Korean audience would have been even more surprised than you that all these things came out. But the director's a genius, and I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and it resonates with, everybody who watches it because it's so disturbing. But also, we chose this movie because of our love of dumplings.
Yeah, yes.
Of all kinds. Boy came out in 2003. It's written and directed by Park Chan-wook, or Koreans would say Park Chan-wook, starring Choi Min-sik as Dae-su protagonist, and it lit the movie world on fire. So ultimately won the Grand Prix at the 2004 Cannes Film Festival, where Judge Quentin Tarantino called it a masterpiece. And I learned in my research that the movie is actually based on a Japanese manga of the same name.
I had no idea that existed, and now I'm going to go look that up. Also, Spike Lee did a remake that I have not seen. Yeah, there's a remake of Oldboy that came out in 2013 starring Josh Brolin and Elizabeth Olsen before her Marvel fame.
I love Spike Lee. Everything he does, I think, is magic, except this movie.
Unfortunate.
I feel like when you have a movie that's pretty flawless, I think it's kind of silly to remake it.
You shouldn't touch it.
No. And I don't really understand why he redid it, because I think his movies are so original and unique, and I don't know why he, as a master filmmaker, storyteller himself, would feel the need to remake another masterpiece.
Right.
In his own way. Not to say that it loses stuff in translation, but it loses stuff in translations. All the stuff that we talked about earlier about filial piety, duty, privacy, keeping family secrets secret, wealth, class, all those things are not as clearly defined or understood, I would say, in an American setting. Spike Lee, I love you so much. I don't mean to malign your work, but I guess I am just confused by why you would make this cinematic choice. Anyway.
I have a production note.
Yes.
The first opening screen, the production company is Egg Film. I was like, Egg Film? So culinary. How did they know I was watching this movie?
Wait, so tell me more.
I looked into it. In 2001, 5 Korean film directors formed Egg Films. It's a very unique production company where the directors choose the producers and they have investments. So it's not the other way around. It's not the company funding a movie. It's that the directors are choosing their teams. It's like it sort of flipped the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, so it's the art and the creative vision come before the money. Unheard of.
Part of that deal, each director got 3 films. And so...
More background. Oldboy is the second installment in the Vengeance trilogy. The first one was Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and then the third installment is Lady Vengeance. And also, fun fact, Oscar winner Bong Joon-ho, who wrote and directed Parasite and Snowpiercer, worked under the director Park Chan-wook. Parasite was the first foreign language film to win the Best Picture Oscar, which is a huge flex to Koreans everywhere.
Yes.
You have to think about the Oscars are like almost 100 years old. And so there's, I don't know, 90, 88. Anyway, let's say 88, 90 years old. And the Best Picture Oscar is always an American film. So
yes.
To have a foreign film in a foreign language that most people don't understand in Best Picture was a huge deal. And when Bong Joon-ho gave his acceptance speech, it was also in Korean.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he was crying, and it was really emotional. But I think the popularity of kind of all forms of Korean culture, media, K-pop, Korean movies, K-beauty, Korean food, it's really exciting, as a Korean American.
Oldboy paved the way. I really think so.
Yes, thank you very much. And, I think we have to remember, in 2004, Quentin Tarantino was a huge deal. For this big deal American director to come out and say, this is a masterpiece, and then the film world looks at the Cannes Film Festival as, that's kind of the first look for a lot of movies and talent. So that was a huge, huge deal. So very, very exciting. And I've seen, like, Park Chan-wook, he did, like, The Maiden, he did Oldboy. I would say his movies are a lot darker than Bong Joon-ho. I think Parasite, Snowpiercer, they're not like bubblegum fantasy, like, yay, but I don't think that they're nearly as dark. But I think he does have a stronger emphasis on class and socioeconomics. So my friend was telling me Parasite is social and economic hierarchy from top to bottom, whereas Snowpiercer, it's from back to front. It's like horizontal versus vertical. And I thought that was so brilliant. I was like, that's so smart. She's like, I heard it on NPR.
Well, we hope people say we heard it on Cinema Chefs.
We heard it on Cinema Chefs. I think there are certain movies you acknowledge that they changed your life, they made you feel something, and they stay with you forever. But you don't necessarily want to watch them again.
Yes.
This is one of those movies.
This is one of those movies.
I would say Oldboy, I have now seen it twice. I do not need to watch it again. I kind of have nightmares about the plotline.
It's been seared in your mind. Let's get to the best part of the movie, the dumplings.
The dumplings! So, listeners, dumpling can encompass about a million different kinds of food. For the sake of the episode and for everyone's sanity, we are going to focus on the Korean dumplings, or the mandu, in the movie. I guess technically they're Chinese dumplings because he's always going to a Chinese restaurant. It's a fried Chinese-style dumpling. In Korean, they are called mandu. And I think what's great about the way that the script is written, it's a key player in the movie. After being in prison for 15 years, the first clue to who his captors were and where he was held captive comes from the dumpling. He eats the same fried dumplings from the same restaurant every single day for 15 years. And one day he's eating the dumpling and there's a piece of paper that is from the restaurant. And I believe it says Blue Dragon.
This is very interesting. The very first appearance of our tray of dumplings is at 6 minutes 39 seconds, pretty early on.
Very early.
And did you know that Blue Dragon is also a film award ceremony in Korea?
Park Chan-wook, man. Or Park
It
Chan-wook.
is like the Oscars. So we were already talking about the Oscars. Incredible that he referenced it in this way. I don't know if that was purposeful, but I feel like it is.
Everything he does is purposeful. Like, nothing is wasted. That's amazing.
As you said, the dumplings are the key. 35 minutes in, 36 seconds, he begins his search for answers. I give it a chef's kiss, official Jenn de la Vega chef's kiss, for playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons Winter, which is the theme from Chef's Table.
Amazing.
This is when he gets to his first clue and he tortures somebody, but they play that song and I'm like, wow. Universally, like, this song is universally culinary.
Well, and you know what? I would bet the Chef's Table people have seen this movie. It's an homage to this.
In a twisted way, sure.
Well, I think that's kind of brilliant when you have these really famous classical music tracks playing in the background when horrible things are happening. It's this juxtaposition of one of the great classics of music, with strings and a very famous composer, and really horrible things are happening on screen. And I think it just accentuates the violence. And, it was a deliberate choice. Like, he's a masterful filmmaker. It makes a huge difference. All right, let's get back to his sleuthing.
His journey.
His sleuthing with the dumplings. But there's a scene in the phone book, and there's like a cajillion Blue Dragon restaurants, and he goes to every single one, proceeds to order and try every single fried dumpling they have on the menu. I think it's really sad and kind of brilliant that the PTSD of having been in prison and eating the same thing every day is also the key to figuring it out.
Yes.
Obviously, it's taken a toll on him. When he pukes after eating the dumplings for like the 1000th time, no, 10,000th time, you can really feel how grossed out he is. But man's on a mission. He's got to figure out where the dumplings came from. Jen, can you even imagine eating the same thing every day for 15 years?
I mean, I try not to, but if it had to be anything, it would be cheese. It's really funny when he finds the correct place and he chases that delivery person. At 39 minutes into the movie, he says to the guy in the elevator, "Tell your chef to go easy on the scallions."
Which I thought was such a brilliant line, right?
Otherwise, we don't really get an indication of what's inside. We don't actually see inside the dumplings. He prefers to eat them whole. He doesn't really bite them. He just shoves them into his mouth.
I think that's such a masterful choice on the part of the actor or director or whoever told him to do it. He's not eating for enjoyment. He's eating for sustenance. What's the quickest way to get this down? Watching this movie again, everything is so deliberate. The way that they talk, the way that they look, the way that they eat. Also in the movie, they're always using metal chopsticks, which is a Korean thing.
I noticed this.
So metal chopsticks are really challenging to use because they're really slippery.
Oh.
But the reason why Koreans use metal chopsticks is back in the days of, dynasties and royalty, everyone was always trying to kill the people in charge. And so with metal chopsticks, they react to poison.
Yo.
Yes. And so that is a, vestige of that time where you would eat with metal chopsticks to see it would react with the food, to see if it was safe or not.
This plays into a thought I had when I was rewatching it.
Ooh, tell me.
At 10 minutes into the movie, he's eating with his hands during a knife commercial, which I thought was masterful.
Yep.
And then 2 minutes later, time has passed in this cell. He's using chopsticks. He's upgraded from the hands and notices that he has 3. The poor guy next door only has 1.
Yes.
This is the sort of a moment of like a return to humanity.
Yeah.
He's coming to his senses compared to the earlier tantrums of the earlier scenes. And then it becomes a beacon of hope. It's a tool for digging himself out of there.
It's like this mistake with his, cutlery ultimately helps him become more civilized, have something to do, plot his escape. Chopsticks, not just for eating dumplings.
Well, I have like a kind of a larger question. I don't know if you're going to have like the specific answer, but this feature item, fried dumplings from a Chinese restaurant, there is a huge Chinese diaspora in Korea.
Yes.
The migration of the dumpling. Do you know anything about this?
What is a dumpling at its simplest, right? It's something starchy, a thin wrapper with stuff inside. Is it meat? Is it vegetable? Is it meat and vegetables? Is it noodle? Whatever. Dumplings are originally from China, and they migrated all over Asia by way of the Silk Road. People speculate that mandu, or Korean dumplings, came to Korea around the 14th century. And what's also interesting is that around Central Asia, East Asia, all these different cultures have a dumpling, and they all call them something different. But in Central Asia, they're all cognates of mandu. It's like manti, mandu, mantu. It's all the same root. I thought that was really interesting because Chinese mantu is considered a cognate of mandu, but that is not a filled dumpling. It's the bread. Somewhere along the line, they made it their own. And then they also obviously have dumplings, but they are called different things. But also, when the dumplings came from China to Korea around the 14th century, it was during the Goryeo dynasty, which was Buddhist. Buddhists don't really eat meat. But then the Mongolians also kind of arrived on the scene. And they're like, we're eating meat. Because of who was invading, occupying, it depends on what side of history you're on. The Koreans kind of softened their stance on meat. Today, when you have Korean dumpling, you can have them with meat, vegetarian. I think what's great about dumplings is you can put whatever you want inside.
It's true. Thanks to a very, very large Asian diaspora, we got vegetables, we got egg, we got mochi, we got red bean. Doesn't have to be savory. It can be sweet. You can have egg custard in there.
I think also it's an economical choice, right? You have meat in a dumpling, so meats and proteins tend to be more expensive, but you're adding vegetables and tofu and noodles.
We're stretching it.
Right. It's an economical way to have meat in your dumplings. And then also it's very filling because it's got the thin starchy wrapper and then it's got all the goodness inside. And then I think for Koreans, typically mandu is fried, steamed, or boiled in soups. My personal favorite is steamed, but only if they're really good. If you have a really well-made dumpling with really delicious filling. You just want that light steam, perfect amount so that the wrapper isn't mushy, and then it's just this burst of flavor. Now, if it's not a good dumpling, then you gotta have it fried. So I like to say that frying covers a lot of culinary sins.
It's true. It's true. Wait, Clara, I didn't ask you.
Ooh,
Would you be able to eat fried dumplings for 15 years? Or what would you switch it out with?
that's tough. No, I could not do it for 15 years. If I could only eat one food for 15 years, oof, I don't know. I don't know what it would be. That's
We can revisit that in another episode.
Well, I feel like part of the reason I became a chef is because I wanted to eat different things all the time. So
Same.
instead of going out to eat all the time, I just make whatever I want.
I mean, why do you think my Instagram handle is Randwiches, random sandwiches? Because I like to eat a different sandwich every week.
Okay, I just learned today.
You did not know,
what your
you did not know this?
Instagram. Well, I knew the sandwiches part, but I was like, why is it Rand? Like, what is that about?
Because they're
And
random.
No, that makes perfect sense. But I did not know that. Jen, tell me, what is your favorite way to enjoy dumplings, and what's your favorite filling?
Gosh, we make a lot of them in my family. We make two very specific kinds. Shomai, which is spelled Siomai. It is a cognate of shumai, the Chinese shumai.
Nice.
So it's the open-ended dumpling. It looks like a cork, sort of. It's all the sides are all pressed in, and the meat is open-faced.
Yeah, so you can see what's inside.
Yeah. So we do Cebuano style, which is water chestnut, pork, and carrot.
Ooh.
And that is steamed. It is lovely. I have a version in my cookbook that has bacon chili oil in it.
What cookbook is that, Jen?
It's called Showdown. I'll put it in the show notes. And then my auntie Belinda makes pancit molo. Pancit is usually a noodle dish, but this one is a dumpling soup where we use square wontons and we simply fold it on the diagonal with like a tiny teaspoon of the meat filling so that when you boil it, they become wings in the broth.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That
Super
sounds so
good grandma style chicken soup for when you're feeling sick.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Amazing. Do you make your wrappers fresh or do you buy them?
50-50 on that. I endorse making the fresh dumpling dough for yourself because it is more forgiving. Because the ones you get from the store, sometimes they might not be the best quality. They're not as pliable. And I don't know, I've had some bad luck before. Mine have dried out, And I'm like, oh, I can't use these. They don't stick as well. They get really hard.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, we'd have mandu making parties. We do 500. And
Yeah.
that was always the trick, is that you always had to have a towel over your stack of dumpling wrappers.
Mm-hmm.
But also, listen, sometimes the Asian grocery stores, they're not really keeping fresh inventory.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
If your wrappers are super old and freezer burned, they are going to taste gross. And to your point, they're going to be really
break.
dry because they're old. And that's yucky. All right, really important question.
Yes.
Round or square wrappers?
Well, gosh. Depends on what shape I'm trying to make. If it's going to be more of a boxy, pointy thing, then square. If it's going to be a rounder moon shape, then the round.
I think for me, I prefer round just because that's what we had in our house when we were growing up. When I say we used to make 500, that is not exaggeration. My mom would make 10 pounds of filling, which doesn't sound like that much, but if you think about how little filling you're putting in each mandu, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And typically she would do ground beef or pork, grain tofu. She'd weigh down the tofu with I don't know, a big bowl of a metal bowl of water or books or something wrapped in plastic to get rid of the excess liquid. Drain kimchi, salt, pepper, and then maybe some scallions, right? Not too many scallions.
Not too many scallions.
We want to piss off Dae-su. I think when you're making dumpling filling, you're going to over season it because the wrapper doesn't have a lot of seasoning. It has no seasoning. And then a lot of times if it's steamed or in broth, those are very mild flavors. But I think also another key thing in making a good mandu is the filling cannot be wet. It cannot be a soggy mess. So it was kind of funny. I grew up watching my mom do this. And then when I was a chef at a Korean gastropub, we had beef mandu that were fried, and we did a charred eggplant puree with it. It was really good. My cooks would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, you got to weigh down the tofu. You got to squeeze the life out of the kimchi. And they were like, why? I was like, because if the filling is too wet, it's a nightmare. It's not easy to handle. It's not easy to shape. You end up with a soggy, sad mandu. And nobody wants that. The filling needs to be very well seasoned. and dry as possible, but not too dry. Like it's still got to stick together, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that happy medium.
That advice also applies to vegetables. If you were to do a stir fry, like in the case of making lumpia from the Philippines, you would stir fry vegetables, and then you would also drain that naturally. We're not pressing the liquid out of the vegetables. We're just putting it in a strainer and letting it naturally fall so that it is dry enough to put into lumpia or dumplings.
No, I think that's excellent advice. And then we'd all be sitting down with our stations. We'd all have our stack of wonton wrappers with the towel. We'd all have a little bowl with our filling. We'd all have little spoons to scoop in a little filling, and then a little bowl of water.
Yeah, a little bowl of water.
To seal the edges. And then if you're feeling really fancy, you would have an egg.
Yeah.
A cracked egg. You'd use the egg white to seal, which it'll make a better seal because it's protein as opposed to water. I mean, eggs are so expensive nowadays. That just seems like such like a luxury. It's like, oh, I used egg white to seal my mandu.
My mom would do one egg diluted with water, so it kind of split the difference. Do both.
Well, it's proteiny water. Like your mom was very smart and economical. I love that. It's like home ec with Jen's mom.
Yeah.
What's the ideal frying temperature?
Are we talking about deep frying or pan frying?
Whatever you want.
I actually never really measured it myself, but when I'm pan frying, it's usually just medium-high heat.
I think when I fry stuff, I'm typically 325, 350. Like
Okay.
I feel like that's like a good. You don't want it too hot because it is very moist. And then you don't want it too low because then it'll just sink.
It'll just soak up the oil, yeah.
Absorb all the oil. And then do you think there is a difference between frying fresh or frozen?
Sometimes the frozen ones can get crispier. Fresh, when you're making with fresh dough, it tends to be more moist and floofy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'd have to do a side-by-side taste test with this.
See, I think when you're frying stuff, and this is what we would do when I was a kid, make all the mandu, freeze everything.
Yes.
And then I think it is superlative. I think they're easier to handle. Throw a bunch in broth, throw them in the steamer, throw them in the fryer. Even when ravioli is essentially a dumpling. When I worked in restaurants and we did filled ravioli, we'd freeze those too.
Flash freeze them.
It just makes the handling easier. I don't know if this makes sense, but they like cook more evenly because it's like everything's the same temperature and everything's like hard. And then you throw them into boiling water and then they float when they're done. That's what I was always taught. I think with fresh dumplings, fresh pasta, it's so delicate. It's so fragile. And you got to be so precious with it.
Going back to dumpling making event, like that is something we also did in my family.
Yeah.
And I think generally as friend groups, we all should be doing this. Just a seasonal dumpling party where everybody works together. We make 500. Everybody gets to take home freezer bags of like 100 each or something like that.
Sign me up. We should do this. Okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start a Google sheet. We're gonna do
Cinema
a
Chef's
party.
online dumpling exchange.
Dumpling party.
Let's do it.
No, this is amazing. Yeah, so a lot to be said for even if something is as simple as a mandu, like a filled dumpling, there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yes.
So I think with all cooking, it's like high quality ingredients, you're controlling the environment for everything. You're thinking about, is this seasoned? What is this going in? And then also just food safety, right? We never kept our stuff over ice, which is really kind of not good because it's raw meat, it's tofu, it's out there for a long time. I urge you home cooks to keep your filling with raw proteins over ice or somewhere
or work quickly enough within that 2-hour period of the danger zone.
Yes, that is very smart. Also, in Korean like folklore, if a girl makes really pretty mandu, it means she's gonna have pretty daughters.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then if they're like ugly, you're like,
No, there's no recourse or letting you do it again.
Have good personalities.
Oh my God, I love that. It's so funny.
Superficial and wrong. So is a lot of Korean culture. But what's your favorite dipping sauce for dumplings?
Ooh. I do love the soy sauce, black vinegar, thinly sliced julienne ginger, fresh ginger, chili crisp, chili oil, anything chili oil adjacent I will have.
Yeah, no. I concur on all your points. If I'm going Korean, I like soy sauce, rice vinegar, gochugaru, sesame, scallions. But honestly, I feel like the way that the Chinese just do the red vinegar with the slivers of ginger, So good.
It is
It's
good.
so simple, and especially if your filling of dumpling has got all that rich, fatty pork. That vinegar and that ginger with the freshness and the bite, I think
Cuts right through.
it's perfect. I also agree black vinegar, Chinese black vinegar is also very good. But you know what one of my Chinese friends taught me? If you don't have Chinese black vinegar, which most houses don't, she uses balsamic vinegar.
I've heard about this. I've heard this swap and
Yeah.
only recently started seeing it
And
in
I was like,
recipes.
that is
It makes sense.
smart.
It makes sense.
Do you think that all dumpling wrappers are created equal? Are they the same?
No.
In my house, when I was growing up, the company was called like Twin Dragon, and it was like wonton wrappers. Like that's what they were called. And that's what we always got. And sometimes if we were hungry, we would just like eat them raw, which is like not a great idea, but you know, it's like this salty, doughy snack. When I got older and I started going to like Chinese supermarkets and Asian supermarkets that weren't necessarily Korean, they had the Shanghainese wonton wrappers, which are thicker.
Ah, I see.
That kind of blew my mind. Like, wait, what? There's like another kind of wonton wrapper. Typically, the Shanghainese wonton wrappers are fresh. They're in the refrigerated section of an Asian market. It sounds like a good idea, but I think also when you're making wontons or ravioli, you're folding it. So the edges are always going to be double the thickness. Thicker is not always better. For our pasta fanatics out there, that's why when you're rolling pasta dough for filled pastas, you roll it extra, extra thin because you're gonna fold it over. You're gonna have that double thickness along the edges. So
Think about your order of operation. You're going to
Yes.
make your filling, you're going to fill the wrappers, or you're going to make your wrappers or get the wrappers. You're going to fill the wrappers, seal the wrappers, figure out what fold you're going to do, and then choose the method of how you're going to cook your dumplings. And then also choose your sauce. But speaking of shapes,
Yes.
what is the appropriate size of a dumpling?
ooh, all right.
Controversial topic.
We are getting deep. I feel like the appropriate size of a dumpling is you can fit in your mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I think nowadays, listen, I'm a sucker. If things are really small and diminutive, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. But then I feel so bad for whoever had to make all those tiny
So many
dumplings.
tiny precious dumplings.
So many tiny dumplings. And then, you know, conversely, because of Instagram and, you know, everything being kind of shock visual value.
Yes.
Everything's like huge now. We didn't talk about soup dumplings, which are like my favorite, but now they have soup dumplings that are like the size of a bowl.
You could put
And
a
then
straw on it.
Yeah, and then you suck out the juice, and I don't.
That's a lot.
I think that that's like shock value. I don't think that that's enjoyable as sort of like a huge dumpling aficionado. I think your ratios are all off when they get
Yeah.
that big.
It's too much skin.
Too much skin. Why do you need that much liquid? You should not need to enjoy dumplings with a straw. I understand it looks really cool, but I'm not a fan. I think appropriate size dumpling, you should be able to fit the whole thing in your mouth comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
There should be enough of a border so that it's not busting out. 25% filling,
Ooh.
and then have 30% filling, 70%. That sounds about right. I'm trying to figure out if I'm looking at it. Because I think if you overfill your dumpling, it won't seal properly. Then it's not going to cook properly. And then the worst is if you overfill your mandu and then you stick it in boiling stock, liquid, or the fryer, it explodes.
It gets
and
everywhere.
It gets everywhere and it ruins
God.
everything. If you underfill, then it's like all wrapper. You have to seal it appropriately so it doesn't get an air bubble inside. Because that's also not enjoyable. There's a lot of like nuances and there's a lot of areas of careful thought when you're making the ultimate dumpling.
Do you have a favorite shape or a pleat?
Interesting.
I mean,
good questions, Jen.
Folks, if you are beginners, you simply can just fold it in half.
Yeah, make the triangle or make the half moon.
Half moon.
Half moon.
Nothing complicated. It's still a dumpling.
Absolutely. You know, it's got the filling, it's sealed. I think I like round. You fold the wrapper in half, so then you have your triangle or your half moon, and then you take the ends and you stick them together.
Like a tortellini.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
That's so good.
Yeah, because they're easy to eat, they're easy to put in your mouth. There's no like corners tugging at your cheek. Yeah, that might be my favorite. How about you?
This might be going too much into the science, but like making dumplings, you got to think about surface area,
Absolutely.
especially if you're going to fry something. The ones that have the most surface area are the ones that I like.
Yeah,
Things that have flat sides or benefit from doing a dumpling skirt.
Okay, tell me more.
Where you pour a starch slurry into the pan as the dumplings are frying, and so they crisp up into a cracker when you move all of them off of the pan. It's a lot of fun. Dumpling skirt. You should look it up.
Dumpling skirt. Now I didn't know it was called that. That's a friend of mine did that.
It's mostly popularized on gyoza, which is the Japanese dumplings. And I was doing a lot of research and learning different folds, and I found a Chinese one called the copper cash, which is 4 dumplings. You've folded them in half, simply into half moons.
Okay.
But then you intertwine them into a circle that all the corners touch. It's 4 of them overlap. And you crimp them together, and it looks like a coin with a hole in the middle. It's pretty cool.
That sounds so awesome. I'm going to look that up.
It's epic. It is 4 dumplings. It's not meant to just go in your mouth at once, but it's like more of a party trick.
But that sounds, that's awesome. Yeah. I wanna eat that right now. Do you prefer pan fried or deep fried?
I prefer pan fried.
Because?
I don't know. Actually, I'll take that back. I like pan fried Asian dumplings. I like deep fried pierogi. Have you had pierogi? The Polish dumplings. They're much thicker.
Yes.
And I like having them deep fried because you eat them with sour cream and applesauce.
Yeah. Sour cream is, I will eat anything with sour cream. Like, I will eat cardboard
I love sour cream too.
With sour cream. Yeah, I'm with you. I think pan fry is better than deep fry because I feel like you get more flavors and textures. Whereas I feel like deep fry is one note. It's crunchy, filling.
All crunchy, bubbly on the outside.
Right. So, and then I think with Asian dumplings, I like you steam and fry them simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
For our listeners, like my cooks would always be like, "Chef, can you make us dumplings?" I'm like, "You can do it." They're like, "No, it doesn't turn out the same way." It's this delicate balance where you have frozen or cold dumplings, mandu, and then you put a little bit of water and a little bit of, more oil, I guess, into a saute pan, and you put the flat side of the dumpling in the pan, and then you cover it. The water steams the inside, and then the oil crisps up the skin. You're steaming and frying at the same time. If you nail it, you get a super crunchy golden brown bottom with a hot, steamed, perfectly cooked interior. It takes a little bit of finesse. I think if you add too much water, then they get waterlogged and soggy and sad. And then if you don't add enough oil, they're not going to get enough crunch.
You also have to watch out for burning here.
Yes. I think if you have a tight-fitting lid and you turn on the heat after, I think that's much safer. Like, I wouldn't pour oil and water into a hot skillet over like an open flame. Don't do that, guys. That's super dangerous. Safety first, control your heat. If it looks like a lot of oil, it's probably a lot of oil, right? Don't put like a half a cup of oil into the saute pan. Don't put like 2 cups of water. It's just enough liquid to steam, enough oil to coat the bottom of your dumpling. I think nowadays, I still believe in the internet. I feel like if you Google like how to make, crispy mandu or how to make crispy pan fried, wontons, do your homework. Don't look at one site. Look at a couple different sites.
And compare.
And compare. I think for Chinese cookery, Walks of Life, I think is really great.
A classic.
And for Korean cookery, I love Honest Kitchen, AHNEST Kitchen. She's a really great blogger that is cataloging all of her mom's recipes. Her parents are native Korean. And then obviously Mangchi on YouTube is the OG.
Auntie, yeah.
And her recipes they really work. So going back to the size of mandu, the only time it's okay to have a big one is wang mandu, which means king mandu in Korean. And they're really big.
Whoa.
And they cannot fit in your mouth. They're my favorite. It's usually bready. It's like more of like a bread with vegetables and meat and clear noodles. And they're really fantastic. My dad will bribe me with wang mandu. He'll be like, "Are you hungry?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I brought wang mandu." I'm like, "Okay, I'll be downstairs."
Well, speaking of which, what is the best dumpling and where can you get it, listeners? We want to know.
My house. I'm just kidding.
If I'm not making them, where would I go?
Actually, Jen was visiting Philadelphia and I took her to Dim Sum Garden.
It was so good.
Very good dumplings of all kinds, including soup dumplings. And then I don't know that there's a great place for Korean dumplings in Philadelphia. Although,
I can't think of a specific Korean dumpling place that I know.
The 69th Street H Mart food court on the second floor
Hell yeah.
has great king dumpling. They have great wangmandu.
Well, now I have a field trip.
Anytime you come to Philly, I will take you there.
Dang, that sounds so great. For folks in New York, you really can't go wrong in Flushing and Chinatown in Manhattan, but I do want to send you to Maxie's Noodle, which now has 3 locations. It's Hong Kong style wontons and dumplings. She has an excellent video about this on Food Curated, which is one of our local access, cable access TV shows by my friend Liza. She talks about how she gets custom wonton and dumpling wrappers that are as big as my hand, and
Wow.
she uses a very, very rich fish collagen stock with her pork dumplings, and they've got huge chunks of shrimp in them. They will not fit in your mouth in one bite, but they are excellent. Even takeout is excellent. I usually don't like to get things takeout because I want to experience it hot. But yeah, Maxie's Noodle, hands down, one of the best I've had in a long time.
That's amazing. Wait, you brought up something interesting. You said tons of fish collagen in the stock. I've loved soup dumplings my whole life. And before I became a chef, I didn't understand how they got all that liquid.
It's magic.
It's magical. But what I realized as I cooked more is that when the filling is cold, the fat is more solidified, the collagen, all that rich unctuousness of the broth is more solid when it's cold. That when they steam the dumplings, the fat melts, the collagen melts. If you've ever made really good chicken stock or beef stock, and it's like liquid when it's hot, you put it in your refrigerator and it's like a brick, it's the same thing with that soup dumpling filling. The dumplings that Jenn was describing, I bet you they're so juicy and wonderful.
Oh, delicious.
When they're hot, but that's because of the high fat and collagen in the stock, which is another key if you want a really juicy dumpling or a juicy bun.
It's true. Dumplings are the key.
They really are.
Just like an Oldboy.
If I have proteins that I'm like, when did I get this ground beef? I'll smell it obviously and I'll look at it. But sometimes with the oxidation and there's like a slight discoloration, which does not mean it's bad, I might cook a little piece. And that's what we'll, everything's raw, but it's going to go in and you're going to make 500.
Yeah, how do you taste test something that's
raw?
So
I will heat up a little oil in a pan and then I'll sear off like a tiny bit of it to check for seasoning. That's a really good litmus test because you don't want to make 500 dumplings and realize that they were not seasoned.
They're under seasoned.
And that is, or if it's too salty. Jenn, what if you taste your filling and it's too salty? What would you do?
I gotta add more stuff to the filling. We gotta even it out. If I had tofu, if I had more leafy greens that I could saute off and drain, if I had mushroom, potato even, I would just stretch the filling more. Or if I had more meat in the freezer or something like that, I would defrost that and mix it in.
And I think also cellophane noodles.
They need to be hydrated and they suck up all that saltiness. That's amazing.
Yep. And it's inexpensive. So there's a lot of ways you can go with it. And I love dumplings, like the Korean dumplings, the wangmandu or mandu that have everything we just said. It's got everything you want. It's this perfect bite with all these great flavors and textures. And I think that's the beauty of the dumpling, right?
Yeah.
You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. You can make it as extravagant as you'd like. I think it's also a good way to... Everything goes back to like cleaning out your fridge. It's like, oh, you've got all these vegetables. Like, clean out your fridge. You could probably use chapchae noodles.
Yeah, you can.
Sweet potato noodles.
Leftovers. Honestly, chop up your leftovers and make them into dumpling filling.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Everything tastes better in a wrapper. Tune in next time as we explore the ultimate breakfast in the movie The Phantom Thread.
Folks, if you're listening, please share your tips for sourcing good ingredients, where to get wonton wrappers, and where you eat your dumplings. Let us know. Thank you for tuning in to The Cinema Chefs. Please share your tips and tricks with us on our Instagram at The Cinema Chefs or drop us a line at thecinemachefs@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed the show. This is Jenn.
And Clara. Signing off.
Just remember, you can become a better cook just by watching a movie. The Cinema Chefs was recorded in Brooklyn, New York and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Edited by Jen de la Vega. Music by Penguin Music, Paradise Island from Pixabay. And our logo was by Nikki Newsom.